screen of your Zoom, you will see a globe icon that allows you to select your preferred language. If you're following in English, you will hear the voice of Nancy Drogo, and our Francophone panelists will be hearing the translation of the English discussion into French by Akim Ajibade. We are extremely grateful to have their assistance for this event. Those of you who are comfortable in both languages can set the translation function to off, so you can hear only the panelists directly. Also, if you'll not be using a textual or closed caption service, it might be best to turn that function off on your screen. The Zoom transcription will get confused by the two languages and can produce some odd results. We'll try to clean those up in the recorded version of this presentation. The Center for Global Studies is very grateful to Lila and Dodge for bringing together this talented group of dance and theater artists and arts managers who are based in Africa, Europe, and the Americas to have a conversation about the cultural work they perform and the impact of transborder mobility and financial patronage on their careers. Lila is a PhD student in linguistic and sociocultural anthropology here at the University of Illinois. Her research focuses on the political economy of cultural development in Burkina Faso and women's efforts to build sustainable careers in dance and theatrical performance. Lila is the recipient of many awards, including several foreign language and area studies fellowships through the Center for Global Studies. She's also a participant and co-convener of the Problems of Decolonizing Academia, which is a 2020-2022 HRI research cluster. Lila also is almost ABD, congratulations in advance, and will soon leave for Burkina Faso to complete the research toward her dissertation. Before handing off the microphone to Lila so that she may introduce the panelists, I would like to thank them all on behalf of CGS. We're incredibly happy to host this discussion and grateful to them for sharing their insights with us today. And one final note, we will have a Q&A session toward the end of this event. If you have questions during the panel, please feel free to submit it. Submit your questions through the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to submit them in French or English. If you prefer to save your question for the final 15 minutes, you can also at that time raise your hand and we will unmute you to ask a question. Again, we do have two translators, so you're welcome to ask in your preferred language, assuming that's French or English. Finally, this event is being recorded and will be posted in the future on the CGS website. And now, without further ado, I will hand this over to Lila to introduce the panelists and begin this very interesting discussion.
Thank you, Dr. Witt, and thank you to CGS as a whole, and also to a number of individuals who are in the background, who are not on the screen here, and who have been doing a lot of work to make this possible. I am honestly really thrilled and honored to bring this brilliant group of individuals together. People that I have met at various different stages of my dance and aspiring research trajectory. Okay, I think we'd have one of the panelists who is just joining, and this is one of the, I think, real barriers to doing this kind of work is how difficult the technology and the time zones and all of these different matters are to make it happen. So I'm really, really glad that Salamata is able to join us. Salim.
Bonsoir.
Bonsoir. Comment vas-tu? Ok, Ma chère, est-ce que tu peux mettre mute? Tu peux éteindre le micro. Okay, super. Okay. So I have just a few words, hopefully not too many. Yeah, so I would like to invite these cultural actors to reflect on the experiences they have had with mobility and with patronage over the course of their careers. Transborder work has been a cornerstone to each of their careers, and each brings different perspectives on the challenge of financing artistic practice, particularly for cultural actors based in or with connections to the Global South. Working in very different cultural, social, economic, and institutional contexts across the world, these cultural actors have insights to share on the global dimensions of cultural production and the cultural politics of globalization. A common question in their professions is that of patronage, how to earn a living in a professional context where wage or salaried labor is uncommon. Patronage comes in many forms and varies by national context. Sponsorship by private foundations or businesses, grants from the artist's home national state, sponsorship from a foreign state or organization, commissions from cultural institutions, in-kind support from local performance venues, etc. How have mobility and patronage been related in the experiences of these cultural actors? Simultaneously, many of the panelists gathered here lead projects that are committed to a particular local context and emphasize the engaged social role of the arts in working towards better futures. What are some of the benefits and challenges of establishing and sustaining locally committed projects? And how do mobility, trans-border relations, and the search for patronage impact them? I will, I think actually I have a number of guiding questions that I was going to mention, but I'd really like to get to the panelists themselves. So I will invite panelists to introduce themselves in a quick kind of a lightning round. So the question for introductions is, who are you? What do you do? And what do you hope to achieve or realize in your work in the next 10 years? And I'd like to start by asking Roxane d'Orléans-Juste to answer that question. So the panelists will introduce themselves. So if I may, Roxane, who are you? What do you do? And what do you hope to achieve in your work in the next 10 years? The floor is yours.
Thank you, Laila. Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Roxane d'Orléans-Juste. I am French-Canadian, born in Montreal and of Haitian origins. I am a dancer, teacher, choreographer, and director. And my life's purpose and so far continued passion has been to use and to work through the art of dance to carry forward issues that are relevant to the world as we know it today, although greatly informed by my cultural heritage. I have been very grateful and very thankful to have been supported and also have been able to receive the tools needed to strategize around supporting myself as an independent artist while working also for several decades in a modern dance company, carrying legacy works for over 3 decades in New York City. So my career has started traveling at the very early age, 2021, moving from Canada to Europe and studying the development of classical ballet students from the age of 8 to the stage. And then that was my first research, and it just continued beyond that. For the next 10 years, that is a very big question. My hopes are that, should I look at the chat? Is there something here that I should be aware of? No.
No,
Okay.
continue, Roxanne.
Thank you. And so, yes, for the next 10 years,
Non,
I really
vois, il est
want
noir
to
avec
be
blob
able
là
to
seulement.
create more bridges and really be an ambassador for dance and for the value and importance of creating between art forms and between countries. My work has been focused in the United States, but I've also traveled and worked for over 15 years, almost 20 years in South America. My desire is, and also in Europe, but my desire is really to continue to expand and travel and meet new communities and see how the creative process in dance can continue to enrich and inspire our life for a better world. That's pretty much the process that I'm looking forward to, and it will take 10 years to continue to create those bridges. It is a life's call. We're not going to reinvent a wheel, but I want to deepen the work we're doing already. And so this is where it is for now.
Thank you, Roxanne. And we will ask you more about all this in some minutes. Okay, I just want to check in with everybody. For those who need to hear French translation, pour ceux qui ont besoin de la traduction en français, est-ce que ça marche ou est-ce qu'il y a des problèmes?
Elle a des problèmes pour activer l'interprétation en français. Donc, j'essaie de lui expliquer un peu comment ça se passe.
Okay. Everyone else, okay? Okay. Merci beaucoup, François. Again, this is the reality of doing this kind of work. So I will continue. I'd like to pose the same question now to Auguste and Bienvenue. So the question is, and I will repeat in French. The question is, who are you? What do you do? And what do you hope to achieve in the next 10 years? Okay. La question pour Bienvenue et pour Auguste. Vous pouvez commencer avec peut-être Bienvenue commence, puis Auguste. La question, c'est qui êtes-vous? Qu'est-ce que vous faites? Et qu'est-ce que vous espérez, qu'est-ce que vous aimeriez réaliser dans les prochains 10 ans dans votre travail?
Bonjour tout le monde, bonjour Leila, et merci beaucoup pour cette occasion, cette opportunité. Moi, c'est Bienvenue Bazier, donc je suis danseur, chorégraphe et co-directeur de la compagnie Auguste Bienvenue. Je suis aussi co-initiateur du programme Laboratoire et formation engagement féminin qui a sa 14e, dont la 14e édition aura lieu au mois de juillet prochain. Et aussi initiateur de l'association Watitsol, qui est une association basée à Bordeaux, donc en France, qui soutient les projets de la compagnie, notamment en France, mais aussi la diffusion des œuvres chorégraphiques que nous créons sur le continent européen, mais au-delà. Je suis aussi président de l'association, ce qui va au-delà de la compagnie et du travail que je mène avec Auguste. L'association Bomen, qui est une association de danseurs et chorégraphes du Burkina et de la diaspora, qui en tout cas tend à défendre les intérêts matériels et moraux donc, des danseurs du Burkina Faso. Voilà ce que je peux dire très simplement de ma présentation. Et peut-être je laisse Auguste continuer la présentation.
Et bonjour à
tous. Merci Laila et merci à toute l'équipe pour cette invitation à ce panel. Donc, moi, je suis danseur et chorégraphe, co-directeur de la compagnie Auguste Bienvenue, que je co-dirige avec Bienvenue Bazier. Donc, voilà, comme il disait tout à l'heure, je ne vais pas répéter. Donc, voilà, on mène un travail de création et aussi de formation entre le Burkina pour faire court. Et puis, sur la question suivante qui concernait du coup notre implication et qu'est-ce qu'on voulait faire dans les 10 ans, c'est bien ça, Leïla. Mais nous, déjà, par rapport à engagement féminin, ce programme de formation laboratoire de création au Burkina Faso, l'idée de qu'on a pour les 10 ans, c'est d'arriver à avoir un programme annuel de formation qui va permettre aux danseurs, aux danseuses plutôt de pouvoir se former tant dans la chorégraphie, mais aussi dans la gestion et la création de leurs projets, et aussi mettre en place une plateforme de création et un festival qui va permettre de diffuser et de présenter les œuvres de chorégraphes femmes venant d'Afrique. Et l'idée aussi pour engagement féminin dans les 10 ans à venir, c'est de mettre en place un incubateur chorégraphique qui va permettre aux danseuses de se former, mais aussi de pouvoir venir créer des projets et les amener jusqu'au bout pour pouvoir être diffusés sur le continent africain, mais aussi à l'international. Après, dans notre travail de création en tant que créateur, aujourd'hui, on a 15 spectacles au répertoire de la compagnie qu'on diffuse avec différentes formes, entre des solos, duos, des pièces de groupe aussi. L'idée, c'est de continuer à créer et de danser au plateau, mais aussi de commencer aussi à sortir aussi un peu du plateau parce que oui, on prend aussi de l'âge. Ça fait quelques années qu'on est au plateau, mais aussi de pouvoir aussi chorégraphier plus aussi des danseurs dans nos futures créations. Et aussi, on a un autre projet pour la suite aussi pour la compagnie, c'est de mettre en place aussi un lieu à Bordeaux où on est basé aujourd'hui, un lieu qui va permettre de présenter notre travail, mais aussi d'inviter d'autres compagnies, aussi un incubateur qui va permettre d'accompagner des projets, recevoir des projets en résidence. Donc voilà, c'est peut-être bienvenu s'il y a autre chose à rajouter, ce que voilà, nous projetons pour les 10 ans à venir.
Oui, pouvoir en tout cas consolider cette construction de pont entre Bordeaux et Ouagadougou, entre la France et le Burkina Faso, voir le continent, pouvoir accueillir des projets, effectivement, comme tu disais, dans ce lieu où nous sommes depuis 6 ans, qui est un théâtre. Et donc, pour nous, c'est de réfléchir à comment on pourrait aussi vraiment accueillir dans ce lieu-là des projets. Donc, de petites formes qui viennent du continent pour, en tout cas, donner une visibilité à ces projets-là voilà, au niveau de la France. Voilà, je ne vais pas répéter, grosso modo, en tout cas, les projets à venir concernant la compagnie.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. So I would like to turn now to the second choreographic duo that we have on this panel. So for Debbie and Jose, would you please tell us who you are, what you do, and what you hope to realize in the next 10 years?
Sure. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much to Lila and to CGS for inviting us to be a part already. Just with a few introductions, it's so exciting to hear about folks. I'm Debbie Kajiyama. My pronouns are she, they, and I'm a fourth generation colonial settler in the unceded land of the Ohlone people, also known as Oakland, California, in the United States. Some of my ancestors migrated from southern Japan as well. And today I run a company, a dance theater company called Naka Dance Theater with Jose Ome. And we've been running it since about 2001. It's an experimental dance-based performance company in Oakland, based in Oakland and Mexico City area. And our practice is really to spend a lot of time getting to know people who are part of our communities. We use poetry, stories, movement, visual art installation, objects, many things to make interdisciplinary performance. And we perform ourselves, and we also work with many people who may have never performed before and support them to tell their stories in their own ways. I guess in the next 10 years, that's a hard question, but I hope that our systems of education and our philanthropic structures will radically change so that they're not exclusionary and don't cause so much pain to many people. I think that certain stories are violently erased. And in 10 years, if I look back, I hope that there will be some kind of small improvement, or I hope there will be a big improvement. And a change, not just like which voices are represented, but a shift in how maybe people of privilege and folks on the margins collaborate with each other. I guess what maybe one wish or dream of my own personally is I'd like to create a network of folks who want to share ritual, both old and new rituals, some sort of practice for honoring those who have passed away, those who have died. And that's always sort of been an interest of mine, but I feel like in the past few years, it's become much stronger. And I'll let Jose go next.
Hello, everybody. It is a great pleasure to be with you. I am honored to just participate in this session. My name is Jose Ome Navarrete Masato, and I was born in Mexico City, and I immigrated to California 30 years ago. So I am a cultural worker. I am interested in the intersection between experimental performances and social justice. My work is informed through an immigrant experience. That's what we do. We are deeply connected with communities that, as Debbie mentioned, they are not, they don't have a discipline of performances, but we are interested in that borderline, in that mixture of experiences. The work that also we present has to do with borders, literal borders and imaginary borders. We have been focusing mainly in this exodus of immigrants coming from South America and also from other continents to kind of achieve, or like to the American dream, and all the troubles and horrible experiences that they gain through that journey. Also, we are focusing our work in a phenomena of disappearance in Mexico through economic disparity, and we are really connecting with families that have been looking for the children. And we are looking for so many, I mean, the amounts of people being disappeared in Mexico are really like horrific. And there is a big movement of families becoming together and also using art as a way of healing, as a way of self care for that journey. And anyway, so we are here and we are so happy to share our experiences with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debbie and Jose. Okay, I would like to turn to, I guess I would like to first just check. Pour ceux qui ne parlent pas anglais, est-ce que vous avez accès à la traduction en français? Ok, ok, s'il y a problème, dis-moi. Mais, okay, I would like to continue then to invite Salamata Cobre to introduce yourself. So the question is, who are you? What do you do? And what do you hope to achieve in the next 10 years?
Bonsoir à tous et à toutes. Merci beaucoup, Laïla, pour l'invitation. Moi, c'est Salamata Cobre. Je suis artiste, danseuse, interprète, chorégraphe, comédienne. Et aussi, je m'essaye en musique. Voilà. Donc, je suis porteuse d'un projet au sein de mon village intitulé Mokoutale. Mokoutale qui veut dire la démarche du terroir. Voilà. Et c'est un projet que j'ai mis en place au sein de mon village, c'est à cette population qui est un peu reculée et ils ont beaucoup de talent, beaucoup de choses à nous proposer, à donner. Donc, j'ai eu l'occasion de voir et je me suis dit, voilà, pourquoi ne pas essayer de développer un projet pour subvenir, pour aider ces personnes qui n'ont pas vraiment accès à la formation. Et voilà, donc d'où est né vraiment le projet Mokoutale. Et donc, c'est un projet qui va amener ces personnes, c'est des danseurs traditionnels et des musiciens traditionnels à suivre une formation, voilà, des périodes de formation spécifiques sur chaque année, au moins 2 fois dans l'année, pour vraiment former ces personnes-là à développer ce qu'ils ont en danse traditionnelle et en musique traditionnelle et amener ce que nous avons l'habitude de voir, amener cela dans le contemporain, voilà, développer ce qu'ils ont et mais
Well, this is not unusual. So I'm just going to wait a moment to see if
à ces jeunes-là et c'est vraiment confronter vraiment là avant pour vraiment
okay. So I think there is a problem with the connection. Hopefully Salamata will be able to, oh yes, reconnect. I will come, I think we'll come back to Sally. Is it okay if we move on, or do you want to finish what you were saying if you have the connection?
Oui, Léla, c'est bon? On m'entend? Votre
Yes.
vidéo.
Oui, oui. Mhm.
D'accord. Je peux continuer, c'est ça?
Yes. Maybe 1 minute, and then you'll have a longer time to talk afterwards.
Laila.
Mhm. La connexion, c'est pas bon. Peut-être tu peux essayer de sans vidéo.
Oui, c'est la connexion.
Peut-être essayer sans vidéo. On pourra t'entendre mieux.
Okay.
Oui.
D'accord. OK.
Okay, I think, Sally, maybe we can continue with the
Oui, j'ai coupé la vidéo.
Ah, ok, vas-y, tu peux finir.
Ouais. OK. Voilà. OK, je peux finir, voilà. C'est comme je disais, c'est vraiment amener ces jeunes-là, les danseurs traditionnels et les musiciens traditionnels à la formation, quitte à les amener à développer leur art, à développer ce qu'ils ont depuis plusieurs décennies, qui n'a jamais bougé, qui n'a jamais été déplacé, et voilà, qui ont du mal à se faire, à se promouvoir. Et voilà comment on développe tout cela, et quitte à les amener à pouvoir sortir de là où ils sont, voilà, amener autre chose que ce que nous avons l'habitude de voir toutes ces années. Voilà. Sally Cobré aussi, je suis porteuse aussi de deux créations solo. Voilà. Donc, la première solo qui est intitulée Gusukuma. Gusukuma qui veut dire parole de cœur, qui est vraiment un solo qui est né après une formation de 3 années au centre de développement chorégraphique dans différents festivals. Et voilà, le deuxième solo que j'ai pu créer en 2020, qui a été lauréat de Visa pour la création en 2020, voilà, qui a joué dans quelques festivals, dont le Massa. Dont Bienvenue Bazier, qui est là avec nous, a été vraiment mon conseiller artistique et qui a beaucoup aidé dans le regard extérieur également, qui m'a vraiment beaucoup guidé pour ce projet solo intitulé MOM, voilà, qui a eu la chance de jouer dans quelques festivals. Et malheureusement, à cause de la pandémie, comme on le sait tous, voilà, après, il y avait des dates qui ont été annulées, et il y a eu des dates aussi qui ont été retenues. Et donc, du coup, j'ai pu présenter, voilà, au festival c'est comme ça, à Château-Thierry. Voilà, mais quelques dates qui promettaient finalement ont été annulées. Donc, vraiment, c'est un peu ça. C'est fait une longue pause une longue pause sans vraiment produire, se promouvoir avec ces projets. Voilà, parlant de la musique également, je suis en train de préparer un album de 10 titres. Voilà, que j'ai eu la chance de présenter 3 titres pendant l'avant-dernière, pendant l'avant-première voilà, du solo. J'ai présenté 3 titres qui a été vraiment ovationnés, qui a été bien accueilli. Voilà, l'avant-première a été jouée à Ouagadougou, au Burkina Faso. Voilà, donc là, j'ai profité de présenter 3 titres du projet d'album en cours. Et ça a vraiment été bien recueilli. J'ai eu des retours qui m'ont vraiment permis d'améliorer certains trucs. Et voilà, c'est en cours et c'est ça. Les projets à venir, c'est encore... on attend le mois d'août pour repartir au village pour la deuxième phase voilà, de formation avec ces danseurs et musiciens traditionnels. Voilà. Il faut dire que la première étape, j'ai pu déplacer, j'ai eu le soutien du ministère de Ouagadougou et également le BBDA qui ont vraiment accompagné ce projet, et l'Institut français et le CCN de Roubaix également, qui, quitte à la coproduction du spectacle MOM, qui a permis à mettre des sous de côté pour pouvoir réaliser ce projet de formation qui s'est passé l'année dernière au mois de juillet. Et, voilà, donc en août prochain, on doit y repartir pour continuer. Et voilà, il faut dire que ça a aidé à amener 3 formateurs sur les lieux en musique et aussi en danse. Voilà. Et ce projet également m'a permis de repérer quelques talents encore en danse, et c'est là que j'ai essayé de parrainer un jeune danseur voilà, du lot qui est allé au Mali, au Mali pour une formation, dont Symphola, voilà, de Lassina Koulibaly et je pense de Lassina Koulibaly et Auguste Bienvenu. C'est un projet, voilà, qu'il. Donc, voilà.
OK.
Un peu. Et ce que je rêve vraiment réaliser dans les années à venir, c'est de pouvoir mettre un espace de formation au sein de mon village à Garango pour pouvoir continuer la formation, pouvoir transmettre mon savoir et décentraliser la culture, voilà, au sein de mon village, parce que là, ils sont vraiment en manque de formation. Il n'y a rien qui bouge là-bas. Quand on parle de la culture, ils sont vraiment très riches en culture, mais rien ne bouge, manque de formation. Donc, c'est le constat que j'ai fait. Voilà. C'est pour ça que je suis allée, et je rêve vraiment mettre un espace en place, pouvoir faire une formation continue sur 3 ans, voilà, pour qu'ils sortent avec des diplômes en danse, en musique et en théâtre. Donc, c'est vraiment un rêve que j'anime à moi. Voilà, et voilà.
Thank you so much, Sally.
Merci.
We will have more time to ask you some more specific questions. I want to finish up with the introductions. Francois Bouda, who are you? What do you do? And what do you hope to realize in the next 10 years?
Thank you, Laila and CGS for the invitation. I'm very honored and glad to participate in this panel. I'm Francois Bouda from Burkina Faso. I have a very diversified, let's say, professional experience. I started working in the dance field, mainly with the company Auguste Bienvenu, whom directors are here with us, Auguste and Bienvenu. And then I worked for CDC La Termitière, which is a dance center here in Ouagadougou, founded by Salia Sanou and Seydou Boro. And then I moved on to work with let's say, the permanent mission of La Francophonie to the UN in New York for 1 year. And then when I came back, I had a completely different experience, as I was the, let's say, the manager for the Danish Cultural Development Program here in Burkina Faso for 3 years. But let's say for the past 2 years, I have been, let's say, reflecting on how to structure my work as a cultural manager. And this is why I founded with my colleague Salamatou Diene, Sankofa Production, which is a cultural engineering agency based here in Ouagadougou. And we want to provide technical assistance, support to cultural organizations, and artists and cultural actors in Burkina, but also across the African continent. I have also a passion for writing and research with a focus on mobility. And let's say last year in September 2021, we released a study commissioned by AMA, which stands for Art for Moves Africa. And this study tries to highlight the dynamics of mobility within the West African region, but also across the African continent. Yes, so basically this is what I can say about me and my career. For the next 10 years, I hope to that our agency, Sankofa Production, will become one of the most important, one of the leading engineering agency in the culture sector. And on a personal note, I hope to become, let's say, an international expert, bringing support to states and international organization in drafting the cultural policies. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Francois. Okay, so I'd like to move towards some more individualized questions for each panelist. And so each panelist will have, let's say 7 minutes still, but we're a little bit running short on time. So if you think you can work inside of 7 minutes, that would be great. And we'll have a moment for dialogue as well between panelists as each one finishes their response. So my first question is for Roxanne again. So we'll return to Roxanne. And this is a broad question, but I know you can answer it in many ways. What shape has trans-border mobility given to your career? What kind of projects have you been able to do? Under what kind of funding structures? Cool.
I hope that I'm unmuted. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Laila. So let's looking at the span of my career and keeping it, I'm timing myself limited in time, but succinct. As I was mentioning before, my first introduction to sponsorship and to government support was from the Canada Council for the Arts. So my research began over 40 years ago. And I was supported and given the faith and the trust that I could continue, that I could carry my research about development of training of classical ballet dancers and studying different schools of formations across Europe, and then coming back to Canada as I was a student teacher at that time of the Canada National Ballet School in Toronto. That was my first exposure to exchanges after I graduated from that school. This relationship with the Canada Council of Art continued and was disseminated in New York when I continued to study in New York a year after that travel, which lasted 15 months, by becoming part of a peer assessment committee for choreographers from Canadian choreographers performing in New York City in different stages, and then writing about their work and having an opinion that today I probably would have a much more, I would have a broader view of what I used to see then than at that time when I was quite young, but I was given the trust to do that. So it opened my mind, it opened my world, and it also gave me confidence that my initial interest to go beyond my own borders was not only respected, but supported. And that allowed me to continue then to travel to the United States, start my career in New York. While in New York, my focus was to work with contemporary choreographers, particularly Elio Pomare, who was Colombian-American, and had done extraordinary work in the city and across the United States, specifically in the community. So we worked, of course, in the formal theater spaces, but at the same time, I was completely fascinated and interested in working in community. So with the New York Dance Mobile stages, where that little platform, mobile platform, would travel from from neighborhood to neighborhood and from borough to borough, I felt like I was really part of the texture and the textile of the impact that dance can have in the community, specifically in underserved community. Later, I dedicated my work, decades of my work as a dancer for the José Limón Dance Foundation and José Limón Dance Company, where I became associate director and then artistic associate director. Before I decided to come back to school here at the University of Illinois, which I haven't mentioned, which is exactly why I am here, returning later in my life to finish my Master of Fine Arts degree, and now working a full-time assistant professor here at the Department of Dance. So all this to say that without the support of the Canada Council primarily, I don't think I could have accomplished this much. I was very grateful and very thankful to know that Canada has great support for the arts. It continues to be, and it continues to evolve, and literally has developed so much in the last 40 years that it is hard to express. It has touched communities that were almost erased, and has done great efforts to acknowledge those communities and highlight the work of choreographers and teachers and performers and visual artists and writers, and bring all this to the fore. So I've been very lucky over the years to have this organization support my work, even after I was fully dancing with the José Limón Dance Foundation. Other projects that I've had the honor to fulfill in my research was to work in South America, in Venezuela particularly. I've worked in Venezuela because I was associated with a founding member of that company. The foundation's name is CoreoArte, and CoreoArte centers its work in an integral program of forming students and children, and then developing also another branch, which is a performing company. This company is celebrating, if I'm not wrong, its 40th year this year, and is in the brinks of shifting now, because you have that generation of dancers at that time who are now at this point of their career, where they are now thinking, well, what is the next step for this company? So in my mind, as an artist, I am concerned with that particular foundation. And as a board member and co-chair of the foundation, I'm thinking about the future for that foundation and what will happen with this company. Extraordinary works are being created in that company besides the advocacy work that they do in different neighborhoods in Caracas specifically. I've choreographed for this company, and now one of my latest work for them is being reconstructed in the Andes, in Mérida particularly, and with a group of students and also traditional dancers. And we will have an exchange hopefully with traditional musicians as well from Venezuela. So it has opened doors for me. That has been literally a matter of the heart. I have dedicated and been welcomed to create with them with very little funding. Some projects were funding by the Canada Council, but others are literally gift of the heart. And working here in the United States has allowed me to do this and to continue to go back and forth every year, ideally, until COVID, and hope to come back this summer. But there's, for the next 10 years, if I could mention what we talked about before, I will be looking for support to be able to continue and significantly try to sustain this, the vision of that foundation. We've been able to have a collaboration between artists of the foundation coming to New York through the Limón Dance Foundation, through the Minister of Culture, have done extraordinary work in a very challenging time in Venezuela about 4 years ago, bringing one major work of José Limón, Misa Brevis, sung by a chorus of 300 voices, and a collaboration between two companies, the National Dance Company and CoreoArte, And we were able to bring these communities together, which internally might have been divided. And that was, to me, the testimony that dance can make a difference, and it can overcome the deepest discords or scars. But it takes courage. It takes patience. It takes love, truly, and understanding. But the dialogue, if I was able to accomplish that with the help of all concerns, we never do these things alone, and we know that. But there was support from this foundation, but there was literally the desire from everyone to work as one. So I think that that's what we need to continue to cultivate, as you mentioned before, and the guests of mentioning that it really comes from the effort of the communities themselves, joining together and having those dialogues. That takes time.
Thank you so much, Roxanne. I feel like your career and your experience just covers so many aspects of this professional domain that the panelists, all of these panelists are engaged in. So I will turn over a question now to Augustin Bienvenu. And here the question is, what has it taken to build a long-term enduring project in your country of origin, Engagement Féminin? How have transborder mobility, relationships, collaborations, and patronage, transborder, all of those things, shaped the course of this project? Okay, to Augustin Bienvenu. Either one of you can start. Yeah, and I will say, yeah, and again, try to keep your responses within 7 minutes. Unless, I'm so sorry, I meant to, okay, we will go forward and we will have discussion with Roxanne at the end of this, at the end of your intervention. We can't hear you yet, Bienvenue. Bienvenue. Le micro. Bienvenue. Le micro est fermé. Ok.
Le micro est éteint.
Éteint. Okay. So the question again, you have the question. Yeah. What is it?
Oui, j'ai oublié mon micro. En effet. Oui, de construire un projet durable comme engagement féminin au Burkina Faso, en tout cas, exige déjà d'avoir une équipe solide, en tout cas une ressource humaine, donc qui permettrait en tout cas de développer les différents aspects du projet, donc de façon efficace. Je dirais déjà en termes administratifs, donc d'avoir une équipe compétente. Et je peux dire que bon, dans la réflexion et la mise en place de ce projet-là, engagement féminin, en 2000, dont les premières réflexions ont commencé en 2006, et la phase pilote qui a eu lieu en 2008, nous avons beaucoup travaillé avec François, qui, en tout cas, gérait tout l'aspect administratif et organisationnel. Donc, c'est vraiment en plus de cette équipe, c'est de réunir, donc, après montage des dossiers donc, du projet, réunir des fonds nécessaires, donc des moyens financiers, mais aussi matériels. Matériel, c'est aussi de trouver les partenaires, en tout cas des structures, des lieux d'accueil qui puissent accueillir l'ensemble des activités, que ce soit la formation, que ce soit les rencontres, panels, tables rondes. Donc, pour que, en tout cas, toutes les activités se déploient normalement comme elles ont été imaginées. Et donc, c'est aussi de pouvoir, en tout cas, s'adapter aux réalités. Donc, sachant que dans un pays comme les nôtres, donc au Burkina Faso, où il y a très peu de moyens qui sont injectés dans la culture ou mis à disposition, en tout cas dans la réalisation de tels de projets artistiques, c'est aussi imaginer quelles sont les formes, quels sont de moyens aussi qu'on peut trouver pour, en tout cas, que le projet puisse continuer, les activités puissent se dérouler. Voilà, donc c'est vraiment comment s'adapter. Et ça, je pense que c'est un des points, des idées que nous avons eues qui nous a permis, en tout cas, de tenir bon, aussi déjà de pouvoir engager l'activité, mais aussi de donner une visibilité afin de faire appel, de gagner des partenaires qui vont soutenir. Donc, je pense qu'il y a aussi de cette équipe toute la réflexion des différentes, en tout cas, difficultés qu'on peut, autour des différentes difficultés qu'on peut rencontrer et qui est quand même importante et nécessaire et qui permettent en tout cas de faire face à ces difficultés-là quand elles surviennent et de pouvoir continuer à développer les projets. Voilà ce que je peux dire. Et avec nos activités, le fait aussi d'avoir une présence en France nous permet aussi de tisser des relations avec des partenaires qui soutiennent aussi et de pouvoir rencontrer des personnes qui ont des compétences donc, assez diverses et variées qui interviennent aussi sur ce programme-là. Donc, la rencontre de chorégraphes, la rencontre de personnes, que ce soit en approche somatique, qui est aussi un aspect très important pour le danseur de connaître son corps, d'apprendre aussi à savoir le soigner, etc. De pouvoir, en tout cas, aller rencontrer toutes ces personnes, que ce soit partenaires financiers, mais aussi des collaborateurs artistiques et tout ça qui viennent apporter leurs compétences sur ce projet-là. Et tout ça, nous l'avons réfléchi, il faut en tout cas que ça soit pensé, développé, réfléchi, en tout cas en tenant compte d'un certain nombre de choses pour pouvoir vraiment aller loin. Mais aussi, il y a la question de l'humain que nous traitons beaucoup dans le cadre de ce projet-là, qui est aussi un aspect social aussi important, au-delà de l'artistique. Donc, c'est que nous le montons à partir d'un constat, et ce constat-là aussi touche l'aspect social. Donc, ce sont des questions qu'il faut traiter. Il faut aussi accueillir les gens comme il se doit, créer un cadre favorable pour que toutes les personnes qui viennent, en tout cas, tirent profit de leur présence et tirent profit de toutes les personnes à compétences variées que nous invitons pour, en tout cas, intervenir. Et cet aspect-là, en tout cas, est très, très important. Et nous savons aussi que ça permet aux différentes personnes, en tout cas, de s'investir un peu plus, mais aussi de mieux comprendre le projet, le fond de ce projet, l'utilité de ce projet. Et c'est ça aussi, tout ça qui crée aussi de l'engouement autour du projet et qui donne encore plus de visibilité à engagement féminin. Peut-être que je laisse Auguste s'il veut apporter quelques... Il faut dire au niveau de, peut-être avant de le donner, laisser peut-être intervenir et compléter, nous avons depuis, en tout cas, eu le soutien de partenaires, en tout cas, divers et variés, donc avec des soutiens, en tout cas, variés et divers, et qui permet aussi, et chaque partenaire est aussi à l'écoute, donc apporte son soutien, que ce soit un soutien accompagnement de personnes, donc de compétences, en tout cas nécessaires qui viennent, mais aussi de moyens financiers. Nous sommes vraiment à l'écoute de tout apport qui peut contribuer au développement et à la construction de ce projet-là. Et nous l'accueillons en tout cas du moment où c'est un plus, ça peut en tout cas apporter au projet. Nous sommes ouverts et je pense que c'est l'ensemble de ces soutiens, l'ensemble de ces apports qui nous ont permis, qui nous permettent en tout cas de continuer à travailler et à accueillir des danseurs chaque année, à développer des projets de création dans le cadre de ce projet-là, à aussi donner une visibilité à des projets qui naissent dans le cadre de ce projet.
Mais pour ajouter ce que Bienvenue a développé tout à l'heure, c'est vrai que la mobilité, la relation et les collaborations qu'on a, en tout cas, permet en tout cas à Engagement féminin de se déployer. Parce que c'est vrai que nous l'avons pensé par rapport au constat qu'on a fait sur le Burkina, de ces manques de danseurs, de danseuses professionnelles sur les plateaux. Donc, du coup, ce constat-là s'est développé au Burkina, qu'on a mis en place, mais du coup, ça a franchi les frontières du Burkina. Et aussi au-delà de l'Afrique, puisque nos relations qu'on a pu avoir et la collaboration qu'on a pu avoir ont mobilisé toutes ces énergies-là, déjà tant par les formateurs, mais aussi les partenaires, ont permis de vraiment mobiliser voilà, ces moyens-là pour venir soutenir le projet en tant que tel. Donc aujourd'hui, oui, c'est un challenge de lancer un tel projet et de le mener dans la durée. Et voilà, ça nécessite beaucoup de travail en amont et de réflexion et de partenariat à construire pour que ça dure encore dans le temps.
Great. And I just want to kind of highlight what Auguste is saying, that this project Engagement Féminin that Auguste and Bienvenue lead brings usually younger women, from self-identifying women from across the continent, to come and train in Burkina Faso. So it really has an aspect of regional mobility, not just regional mobility within the continent of Africa and West Africa specifically. Are there do we have any sort of dialogue that wants to happen between panelists? Does anyone on the panel want to add to what has been said so far from Roxanne, Bienvenue, and Auguste on any of the points they touched on? Yeah, Debbie.
Thank you. No, I just wanted to find out where we can get more information on all of the projects for reading more details about it.
Yes, so I was planning on putting into the chat towards the end of this panel the links that I have, what I have seen to be the most obvious links to put in for people's work. But I encourage all the panelists to, if you have a link that goes towards a specific project that you're working on, and that you'd like to share with the other panelists and with the audience, please do so. That would be wonderful, because you're all artists, or, well, I mean, Francois, I don't know if you consider yourself an artist, but you have works to share that is beyond just the talking. Okay, I will turn then to Debbie and Jose. So the question that I am posing is, how has your artistic and cultural work addressed different kinds of borders? How has your emphasis on building partnerships with communities influenced your funding strategies and the sites in which you rehearse and perform?
Okay. No, empiezo.
Great, thank you. So I know we are probably running short on time, so maybe we'll make it a little bit shorter than. Yes, so many borders. Maybe what I'll just start off with is a video of that shows one of the a very short trailer of one of the works that we are working on called Buscarte, Searching for You. And let me see how I can put the just in case that is the link, in case when I share it, it doesn't stream very well. I would just play it.
Tell me what you saw.
I saw a body.
And was he alive?
No, at one time, yes.
An old creeping door, the kind you would see in a dictator's palace, but faded and peeling and stone heavy. Lean the weight of your body into her, and everything gives way. A stifling tunnel, forked tongue.
It's not that simple. Some might call me eccentric. I saw, but I just have particular. It's not easy. Yes, I saw something. Yes, I saw something. No one else cares, even if only a little. There's so many of them. Yesterday, I drew a map that tries to explain what I saw. I'm not so good at drawing, but I drew what I could. I walked the path as I drew the lines, and I imagined the families, determined, walking in front of me. Do you want to explain a little bit?
No, explain it to you. Okay.
So that was just a performance that was based on the story of the 43 forcibly disappeared students in Mexico in 2014. And that was actually one of the first, it was a duet performance. And we initially, how did we start doing that project? I think we were just really moved by this tragic story of forced disappearance, as Jose mentioned before, that is, and this case of the 43 young students who were about to become teachers in their rural communities, most of them indigenous young men, who were forcibly disappeared, they think partly by the state and partly by drug cartels, really impacted us a lot. And we decided that we needed to make a piece. At first, it was to kind of figure out our own feelings about what this means. And now, as we have traveled to Mexico a lot and met some of the survivors of that massacre, and also met other, they call them the other disappeared folks, meaning other people who have experienced a lot of forced disappearance in their lives, but are not necessarily part of this particular case, which has gotten a lot of press. We've just started to know more about the case. Do you want to talk a little bit about the organizations?
Eh, well, I want to talk a little bit about this, border, these borderlines that we are, that it kind of reflects the work that we do. I think in 2014, we did another project called the Anastasio Project that it looks at police brutality in the border. Also, it was a case that 16 police officers lynched a Mexican immigrant at the border, and it was all video recorded, and it was in the media, and nothing since then has happened. And that when we came back to Oakland, and we start talking with the community there, and we say like, well, how can we? It's really great project. I mean, like it's really good research, but I think I would recommend that you should look at police brutality in the neighborhood. So that for us, that was very interesting to really look at these borders, the kind of the imaginary borders in a neighborhood, as well as the literal border of Mexico. And I thought that was really powerful because I think we touch these ideas of territory and literally and imaginary. I think by working with this state violence, really kind of really like put us into look at these cases of police brutality. And I think the 43, the movement of the 43 has to do with police brutality, police repression. And it has to do with this kind of disappearance, and I think that's the connection that I feel that all the work that we do has to do, or it deals with these ideas of bringing justice or even contemplating these testimonies to bring some kind of resolution, as well as using art to elevate and navigate, the journey of the families. So just going back to this project of Buscarte, as Debbie mentioned, I mean, we did it in 2017? 14. It has been like a journey in terms of I think it was 2019 that we decided to just close the project and say like, okay, this is the time to just like, let's close Buscarte. But for some reason, the connections that we were creating in the way, it kind of opened up. It was like, popcorn, like pa. There were like a lot of organizations, family organizing themselves to go to mass graves and search for their bodies for the children. It was really powerful to me. And we became a little bit more involved in the sense of accompanying and being an ally for those families of despair. And actually, today is the last day. Actually, yesterday was the first brigade, international brigade, that it was organized by a lot of family collectives in Tijuana, in the border.
A search brigade.
A search brigade that we focus on focus internationally, like, what happened with immigrants that disappear through crossing the border, through transition. And that was really powerful to me, because I think the families are really looking at the problem a little bit more globally, what is really happening. Because of, we see a lot of people from Haiti, a lot of people from El Salvador, Peru coming in and disappear. So I think those are kind of the connections that we are creating. At this moment, we don't have art per se with the brigades, but we are really contemplating these ideas, because we feel that it's very important to have time to create those rapports, to create some kind of collaboration together. I think I remember when we did the Anastasio project, it took us like 7 years to just come to fruition, to bring something together. And talking a little bit about funding, I think it has been hard funding in America because we are in a system of scarcity. And always we are trying to, fundraise for work that we do a lot of work and we don't get funded properly. But we have managed to do savings. We do savings. We save our, like if we want a project to happen, sometimes we use our savings from other projects that got funded to do the work that we really wanted to do. So I think that's how we manage ourselves. Like sometimes when we are, we feel that we have an amazing project that, like it should be funded and we don't get funded, and like, oh, well, ni modo. So it doesn't matter, like we will do it no matter what. So I think it's how ourselves navigate into the system of patronage to really make our, make our goals or our dreams to be happening in no matter what way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I guess I would add that the kind of work that we do, as Jose mentioned, it kind of takes a long time. And so it's not like we rely a lot on grants from foundations or the city or the state that we live in, but there's sort of this idea of, well, you make the project in 1 year and then you put it on stage and then you're done and you write your report and then they say, okay, you can have the money. But our process is so much longer. Like our process is literally it's very difficult to find funding to just go hang out in a community for 7 years and dedicate the amount of time to build the relationships that will allow the piece to really have some kind of integrity. Otherwise, it just feels like appropriation. What else?
Well, anyway, we have other work that we would like to share, but not here. But I think we will put it in the chat, okay, just for the sake of time. But I think we are done, right?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Debbie and Jose. And I want to, Timur Pollock let us know that all the panelists, we will put any of the links that the panelists wish to share on the CGS website after this panel, so that later visitors watching this event afterwards or just curious can find your work there. But I would like to ask, do any of the other panelists want to dialogue or say anything before I move on to Salamata? I know I think they touched on some issues that probably are maybe if not universal, very common. The question of savings, making your own savings and starting your own project from your own savings. I'm sure that some of the other panelists have stories about that. But I will, unless there's something else, I will ask Salamata. So Salamata, this question is for you. What has been your experience performing in different genres, contemporary dance, theater, music, traditional dance, for different audiences and in different countries? Has it been easier to earn a living abroad or at home, and why? And then finally, how has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted your ability to earn a living in the performing arts? I think you touched on that. But so that's a big question. Feel free to respond, like if you have a story that kind of encapsulates some of these issues, feel free to tell that too. Okay, Salamata, hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if not. Don't, le micro. Ah.
Ok. Oui. Ben, ça va?
Oui. Vas-y.
Ben, je dis...
Peut-être sans vidéo. Je pense que ce serait plus
OK. Ben,
smooth. Ouais.
OK. Je vais devoir couper la vidéo encore parce que ça coupe beaucoup.
Oui. Il n'y a pas de
C'est
problème.
très mauvais.
Mhm.
Voilà. Merci beaucoup de me redonner la parole. Merci, je dirais merci aux autres panélistes pour leur contribution. Voilà. Bon, mon expérience au niveau de la danse contemporaine par rapport au public, ça se présente différemment en Afrique et en Europe. La différence se trouve au rapport que les publics ont de l'art. Que le public ont de l'art et je ne sais pas, et de l'esthétique, le mot artistique. Les théâtres européens dans lesquels j'ai joué, que ce soit mes solis ou dans les pièces de groupes de chorégraphes européens, ont vraiment été bien accueillis par rapport au public, avec souvent des standings ovationnellement, avec des ovations très fortes. Par contre, en Afrique, nous n'avons pas la même sensation, voilà, avec les publics qui se trouvent voilà, dans la salle. Et quand on joue, on présente nos projets de danse contemporaine, c'est souvent abstrait. Voilà. C'est souvent abstrait, voilà. C'est ça vraiment la différence. Et voilà. Pour ce qui est du théâtre, les pièces dans lesquelles j'ai participé, c'est des pièces vraiment qui ont été jouées au Burkina Faso. Donc, j'ai participé en tant que comédienne et ça a été diffusé au Burkina Faso. Voilà. Je dirais que les diffusions ont été faites en ville et souvent aussi en province. Et quel que soit le lieu, les publics, ils ont l'habitude vraiment de voir les pièces de théâtre. Donc, ils sont toujours séduits par les pièces qui leur ont été proposées. Voilà. Donc, et pour quoi d'autre? Voilà, concernant si je gagne ma vie ou pas, en Afrique comme en Europe, je dirais que je gagne ma vie avec les cachets d'Europe et en Afrique, voilà. Notamment au Burkina Faso. Il est évident que j'ai plus joué en Europe et aussi, je dirais, aux États-Unis, plus qu'au Burkina Faso et en Afrique. Et je pense que je n'aurais pas pu continuer à exercer mon art si j'allais compter exclusivement sur mes cachets en Europe et aux États-Unis. Voilà, c'est pour vous dire qu'en Afrique et en Europe sont complémentaires. Voilà, parce qu'il y a des fois vraiment, les cachets sont complémentaires parce qu'il y a des fois vraiment où tu es sur place, tu ne bouges pas, tu n'as pas de projet en Europe et paf, on t'appelle pour une formation, on t'appelle pour une création en Afrique, plus précisément au Burkina ici. Et voilà, donc cela permet de compléter, voilà, de vivre le temps que tu n'es pas en train de te déplacer vers l'Europe, le temps que tu es sur place. Voilà, donc c'est complémentaire. Voilà. Là, on parle de la COVID-19. Hein. Ouais, ça a beaucoup affecté mes activités professionnelles. Voilà. Parce que je dirais que j'ai passé une année sans travailler. Voilà. Pas d'entrée, d'argent. Voilà. Ce fut vraiment très difficile au cours de laquelle la fragilité a encore été éprouvée. Voilà. ça a vraiment été très difficile. Et jusque-là, c'est encore difficile parce que voilà, les projets qui ont été annulés l'année dernière, voilà, on est encore dans l'incertitude. Voilà, il y a pas de date jusque-là. Et heureusement que certaines dates qui avaient été programmées et annulées pendant le confinement ont été indemnisées. Voilà, c'est cela qui a permis à tenir ce temps de pause sans travail, sans entrée d'argent. Voilà. C'est vraiment une période au cours de laquelle j'ai réfléchi et finalisé voilà, une rédaction de mes projets futurs. Voilà.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Salamata. This is
Ouais, donc c'est aussi ce projet que j'ai pu vraiment finaliser. C'est mon 3e projet de création qui va se faire avec des femmes sur scène. Voilà. Je vais profiter, revenir un peu dans, comment on appelle ça, pour parler un peu d'engagement féminin. Voilà, je ne veux pas parler ici sans parler d'engagement féminin parce que je dirais que l'engagement féminin a contribué à faire de moi la danseuse que je suis aujourd'hui parce que je viens de là. Mais tout premier pas de danse contemporaine, je l'ai fait avec engagement féminin. C'est là que j'ai pris goût, c'est là que j'ai fait confiance à moi-même. C'est là que j'ai décidé d'aller voilà, en profondeur comprendre ce que c'est que la danse contemporaine et passer à la formation au centre de développement chorégraphique et pour arriver là où je suis aujourd'hui. Voilà. Donc, je peux dire ça. Voilà, ce projet vraiment a besoin d'aide. Mon projet que j'ai finalisé a vraiment besoin de soutien pour la réalisation, a besoin d'accompagnement parce que a besoin de coproduction parce que c'est difficile, c'est très difficile parce qu'on se met souvent à créer sans d'accompagnement, sans vraiment rien. Et après aussi la diffusion, il n'y a pas d'espace pour diffuser. Et donc, pour ça nécessite vraiment d'accompagnement, de soutien, voilà, de collaboration pour que ce projet puisse avoir le jour avec des femmes pour encore honorer le projet engagement féminin, pour dire à ces braves gars que le projet engagement féminin est très important pour nous qui avons bénéficié. Moi, personnellement, je loue vraiment ce projet et voilà, c'est encore pour les dire qu'ils n'ont pas eu tort de mettre ce projet en place, qu'on est là, voilà, on va représenter voilà, vraiment voilà, ce projet, ce qu'ils ont mis en place pour nous aider. Donc, c'est pour dire, voilà, c'est un projet, on a été formé, on a fini la formation, on porte nos propres projets et on a besoin de soutien et d'accompagnement parce que c'est pas du tout simple. C'est pas du tout simple, c'est compliqué et voilà. Tant qu'il n'y a pas d'accompagnement, c'est compliqué de réaliser ses propres projets. Et donc, on est dans ça. Voilà.
Thank you so much, Sally. And I know that you're also highlighting.
Voilà.
Yeah.
C'est ça, j'ai besoin de soutien pour ma prochaine pièce, voilà, que je rêve vraiment mettre sur scène en fin 2022. Voilà, c'est vraiment un rêve qui me tient à cœur. Voilà. Et aussi ce projet d'espace au village qui sollicite vraiment de collaboration, de soutien pour que vraiment cet espace-là puisse voir le jour, pour que ce peuple-là puisse en bénéficier, voilà, pour qu'ils puissent bénéficier de la formation, voilà, et mieux comprendre ce qu'ils savent faire, ce qu'ils ont à donner, pour qu'il y ait un large public qui puisse voir ce beau, comment on appelle ça, ce beau culture qu'ils ont en eux. Voilà.
Thank you.
Voilà. J'ai entrepris des démarches pour l'acquisition d'un terrain au sein du village et voilà, qui m'a été accordé. Et donc, ça a besoin voilà, vraiment de quelque chose pour mettre voilà, les pierres sur le terrain pour réaliser cet espace-là. Voilà.
This is very, very exciting to
Merci.
hear. And so the call is out there for the audience. I think Salamata's message is very clear. She would like support on her projects, and I think there's also a message here about gender in the profession as well, and
Yes.
how opportunities and possibilities for building like a career that one can actually sustain differ across the world in terms of gender and race and nationality. And yeah, so I think, so I have a final question for Francois, and I know we are over. I don't want to keep the panelists too long, but I would love for Francois to be able to respond in full, because as the arts manager on this team, I think Francois brings like a particular, perspective on well, I'll just pose the question and we'll hear what he has to say. So my question for Francois is, what impact can regional level policy advocacy and organizing in the cultural industries play in mitigating some of the difficulties and inequities of global culture work? So as the expert here on these sorts of matters, please give us your response.
Yeah, thank you, Laila, for this very interesting question. I will start from the global level and come back to the regional and local level. If we consider some of the engagements of the international community, and in particular, if we consider the 1980 recommendation concerning the status of the artist, and the 2005 Convention on the protection and promotion of the diversity of cultural expressions, which actually asks for a preferential treatment for cultural goods and services from the global south, but also the free circulation of artists and cultural actors from the global south. There shouldn't be any problem regarding the mobility of actors from the global south. But what we observe on the ground is that there are inequalities between cultural actors from the global north and those from the global south. There are a lot of obstacles regarding, for example, let's say visa applications. I started actually developing an interest for mobility because back in 2011, I remember we had like strong difficulties getting visa to travel to France as part of the Engagement Féminin project. Auguste and Bienvenue are here, and yeah, they know how hard we worked to get those visas for the artists. And even that, with all our efforts, not all the artists got the visa to travel to France. And there are other obstacles like inadequate regulations on work permits or the lack of support. Some people, panelists before me spoke about how difficult it is for them to raise money and to support their work. But this is even more difficult here in Africa, where our governments actually don't put in place funding mechanisms to support the arts and culture sector, and especially to support the mobility of cultural actors. And with the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, the situation has worsened, because today you have to pay for the vaccine, you have to do testing, etc. So these are additional obstacles that the cultural actors are facing today. At the regional level, I talked about the study on touring and mobility in West Africa that ARMA, Art Moves Africa, commissioned last year. And this study revealed that there are a lot of lesser obstacles to the mobility of cultural actors. within the West African region, but also across the continent and even towards our parts of the world. And what we have noticed is that most of the funding opportunities that exist come from Western countries or organizations. And there are almost no financing mechanisms from our countries or local organizations. And this is a real problem. Most of the attention is from our countries or regional organizations like the ECOWAS, which stands for Economic Community of West African States. Most of their efforts focus on fighting against illegal migration, but very little is done actually to support the mobility of cultural actors. And yeah, this is a real problem because, like Sally said before, the real market actually for the arts and culture is in Europe, in the United States, other parts of the world, but not here in Africa. If you cannot only rely on the local market to make a living. So yeah, and yet it is just a few actors have the possibility to travel to Western countries and perform. So most of them stay here in Africa and they try to, to work here in their countries, but because there's no funding to support their mobility, it is difficult for them to travel to other African countries. And even with the pandemic, the land borders of the West African states are still closed. So the only way for you to travel to other West African countries is by plane, but this is not possible for most of the actors. So for me, to tackle all these issues related to mobility, we need to come together as cultural actors in order to advocate for a better inclusion of culture in development programs, and also to make sure that our governments and all the regional organizations like the ECOWAS, they put together, let's say, funding mechanisms to support the mobility of cultural actors, because this is the only way they can make a living. And I also think that it is necessary for us to document all our dynamics, because sometimes we lack statistics. But I think that with these figures, we can show how important the cultural sector is, what is the added value it brings, what is the money that the cultural actors make out of their work as here in Africa, but also worldwide. And eventually, I think that we need, as cultural actors, to show them, but also to think about innovative ways of collaborating. Like, I recall that in 2020, the Mbomen Association, which gathers Burkinabe dancers and choreographers, put in place an initiative in order to support younger artists who were facing those difficulties, some issues due to the fact that they couldn't work anymore. And so we need to imagine new ways of supporting each other, but also, let's say, putting together our forces so that, for example, if one artist from Burkina Faso travels to Benin or Senegal, a colleague from there can host him and help him, navigate through the local cultural system. And for me, this advocacy will help solve some of the issues and cast the balance between, let's say, cultural actors from the South and the North, but also build a strong local and regional market, because, like we said before, the market here is very weak and doesn't allow artists and cultural actors to make a living. And this advocacy at last will help structure the cultural sector and, make sure that people can make a living from their work. So thank you.
Thank you, Francois, for bringing in this this big perspective. And also, I think it's really, again, I just want to like highlight how Francois is talking about both regional activity, like within among states in West Africa, and the dynamics of that and the potentiality of that in terms of, let's say, sustainable development, maybe, and versus, or in contrast to, or in complementarity to mobility and cooperations between, say, West Africa and the United States or countries in Europe, for instance. And I know that, we can think of these other regions that other panelists are engaged in as well. Debbie and Jose are talking about relations between United States and Mexico, which is quite a different matter, different dynamic as a regional relationship. And then also Roxanne's career spans the Americas entirely, from Canada through the Caribbean, through the US, through Venezuela. So we are, okay, so we are definitely over time, and I really want to respect the panelists' time. But if you are willing to stay on for a few minutes, I would like to open up both for panelists to ask each other questions or to comment on each other's stories, and or to take a couple questions from the audience. If you have to go as a panelist, please feel free to go. We will collect questions and send them. Well, I'll do a little follow-up, in other words, to make sure that we share links and also any questions that come in through the chat. And I know it's late where some of you are. So yeah, if you have to go, that is right. And if you have a question you want to pose, that is also right. Okay. Okay. So I'm going to, Jose, do you want to ask your question?
Ready?
Oh, sure. It's actually my question. It's
Debbie's question? Yeah.
No, it's very interesting, sort of the funding structures that you were just speaking about. And I'm curious if there is, because of where the funding comes from, do you feel certain pressures to like make work for a particular audience? I don't know if I'm wondering if it also impacts like your freedom to take risks or experiment on really wacky ideas you might have that you think, oh no, I need to make a dance that many people in America will like, for example, or something like that. Maybe it's not the case, but I'm just curious about the impact of the funding structure on your creativity.
Great. I think that, Francois, are you taking that question? I think there are many
Yeah.
on this panel who could
Yes,
take it. Great.
Yeah, like I would take the question, and I guess Lisa Bienvenue can also answer that. From my perspective, there's an impact on the, I would speak from this perspective of mobility, because the funding structures are Western, are based in Europe, the United States. You can see that the trajectory of the artists benefiting from these fundings are between Africa and Europe. I mean, if you take an organization based in France, most of the funding will support travels between France and an African country, and same for other European countries. So you can see that there's an impact. And why are there less, let's say, travels within African regions or between African regions? Is because all the focus is on the North-South collaboration and less between the African countries or regions. So this is a problem for me. And another impact for me is that all the trajectories of the creative work, again, let's say towards the European market or the American market. So if I take the dance sector, for example, most of the choreographers and dance artists from Africa, they're very well known in Europe, in the USA or Asia, but most of them are not even known in their own countries. Why? Because their work is mostly presented in Europe, in other continents, than in their own countries. And sometimes the kind of work that they perform is not really understood from the local audiences. And Salamata, talked about it earlier. She said that her work is better welcomed in Europe than in Burkina Faso. Just because I think that even though it is unconscious, sometimes you also incorporate the fact that you are also creating for a Western audience. So these are the impacts that I can see.
Great. If anyone else wants to answer that question, the floor is open.
I can relate to this difficulty and that dynamic of working abroad and then finding the pathways that seem a little bit more movable for our work to be created outside of our home country. Yes, I am born in Montreal, and my work at a certain point was really supported. Not that it's not supported now, it's just that my time has been spent trying to develop the public wherever I was geographically. And so, but in the back of my mind, particularly now, for example, I'm interested in researching my cultural heritage from my great-grandparents, for example, that are from Canada, and then same thing in Haiti. So the times, it is too bad in my mind. I somehow have a little bit of a regret that I wasn't able to just spend more time impacting the community. And in a way, it's very, very vibrant in Montreal. So it's not that, who knows how it would be received. But I think that now for the next 10 years, my goal is to say, this is also where I'm coming from, and this is what I would like to contribute and at least introduce, in not only as a teacher, but specifically as a creative artist, as a choreographer, because I was supported by these not-for-profit organization or government support. And I've always said when I was 20, I will come back with my hands full. And are my hands full now? They're full enough. So it is time to be able to come back and say thank you at the same time. So, I mean, I'm talking about this kind of emotionally a little bit in terms of feeling that lack of connection. And I think it's really, really, truly important that that does exist somehow, the coalition of organizations within the continent itself, finding before that goes away. I think that's a huge project.
Thank you, Roxanne. Okay, I'm wondering, do we have any questions from the audience? Would the audience like to pose any questions? Okay. We'll see if a chat comes in. I think we're bordering on 2 hours. So I want to just check with the panelists if there are any final things that should be said that anyone wants to bring up or ask each other. And after that, I will close us.
I wanted to say, I never answered the questions about the 10 years because it's extremely difficult to me.
Yeah.
Because I do feel like, of course, I would like to have, this another, world can be possible. But I think we have so many things to do. We have so many things to repair, to mend, that I do feel that just I wanted to be aware in my time to be present and in all the things that I need to do locally and definitely globally. Because I just like, I don't know. I mean, like we are some tremendous, you know, conjunctions of suffering as we move forward and we see, you know, the future. So I do feel that we need to put attention on you know, our vehicle, which is art and movement, dance, through bring our communities, immediate communities together and heal our wounds and heal our lives, on how this system, this economic system has, you know, taken us to tremendous suffering. So I do feel that, yeah, like how can I open my 5 or 6 senses to be aware of that and move forward in the path of art and healing for a better world. Yes, I want to say that. Thank you.
Sounds like a great 10-year plan. Thank you, Jose. Okay. Okay, I might have one question. I'm going to take one question and then we will go, I promise. Do I have a question from Jean-René Balakita? You have the floor, Jean-René.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it is not a question, but I'm so happy about, I forgot her name, from the woman who talked about the village, Burkina Faso, and also Francois. I encourage them to I'm from Congo, in Democratic Republic of Congo, and I'm doing my master's degree in musicology here at University of the Illinois, and I agree with them. They have to work hard to create a local market about those projects they need, of course, to be supported. So I would like to encourage them. Yeah.
Thank you. That's so important, Jean-René. I think that's really important for us to hear, because, you know, as we all know, cultural production, art, cultural work has value, and it has value in this economic system that Jose was mentioning. But where that value goes in the end, who it ends up with, that is a big problem, maybe. And so more equity, you know, more equity in how value can be, you know, received from the work that one puts out, is something really important.
Yeah.
Okay, so this has been a long panel. I'm sure many people on here are very tired now and need to get up early in the morning and travel because they are artists and they're mobile. And so I just wish to thank you all for being here for this, and for sharing so fully and taking the time to hear each other speak. I am going, with CGS, we are going to put together a list of links from the different panelists, so that on the CGS website, you will be able to see the panelists' different projects and works, and follow up with them if you wish. So Timur, can you give us just in the chat maybe the link to the CGS web page where this would be, or something to that effect, just so that audience members can know?
Yeah, give me 1 second. So let me, while I'm doing that, thank all the panelists and the audience that and Lila who put all this together. And I am putting in the chat for everyone where in a couple of days you will be able to find the links to this video and to all the links to the artist's work, and to any of the contact information that they would like to share with us. So at the beginning of next week, you should be able to get in touch with them. And again, je voudrais remercier tous les panélistes francophones et anglophones et Alila et le traducteur qui a fait un énorme travail pour faire cette communication multirégionale, en plusieurs langues et tout ça. Merci à tous. Et bon, je vais terminer l'enregistrement. Nous pouvons rester quelques minutes après.
Yeah.
Merci.
Have a great afternoon, everyone. And shout out to Laura Garcia, my mentee, who has really helped with publicity. Thank you so much. Okay.
Bon.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci à tous. Donc, j'entendrai l'enregistrement si vous voulez parler avec sans l'histoire, enregistrer tous les mots. Pour le futur, vous pouvez le faire. Merci à tous.
Merci
Thank
beaucoup.
you, everybody.
Thank you.
Merci à tous.
Merci beaucoup pour la traduction, pour ces beaux moments d'échange et de partage de connaissances. Merci.
Merci
Oui,
beaucoup.
merci
Bernard.
à Nancy.
Merci à tout le monde.
Merci à tous. Grand plaisir.
Ah ben, c'est super, on a... C'était bien.
Bon week-end, bon samedi, bon
D'accord.
travail.
Restons en contact.
Voilà, gardons le contact.
Oui.
Okay.
And thank you, Hakeem, and thank you, Nancy.
Yeah, thank you. That was
Enchanté.
yeah.
Et salut Jean-René.
Oui, comment vous allez, mon ami?
Ah, très bien, très bien. Comment allez-vous avec vous?
Allô?
Oui, moi je fais très bien. Je suis ravi de voir en quelque sorte, même par Zoom, que vous êtes là.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for coming.
Mm.
OK.
Thank you.
Ciao
Bye.
tout le monde.
Mhm.